Our second guest is coming from the Netherlands. Her name is Hiep, and I'm just inviting you to present yourself shortly, and then we will proceed with the presentation. Ellen, please.
Well, thank you so much for this invitation. And it's also very nice to connect like this because DEMS is a very valuable partner in our Global EV Alliance. So very nice to meet you. And yeah, I'm happy to tell a bit about the Dutch situation. Yeah, and firstly, I have to really compliment the Norwegian EV Drivers Association because they have been our big example ever since. So it's so very valuable to have a good example ahead of you. So we are here since 2015, and we started after a visit to Norway. So they were really a big inspiration for us. We're non-profit independent, and since 2 years, we've got a small staff. We started as volunteers, but since about 18 months now, we've got one director and 2 staff members, of which one is a community manager. So we are sort of growing in our ambitions. Firstly, I think it's always important to say, why is it so important to work on EVs? And this is why we fight climate change. We are a small country, very low. And if the sea level rises, half of our country, the red part, will be under the sea level. So we have an urgent need to fight climate change and start electric driving. At this moment, we have about 310,000 battery electric cars. And in the whole, we've got about 8 million cars on the road, 8 million ICE cars. So there's still a big challenge to go there. And we're quite developed in the charging points. So we've got a lot of public charging points and 3,500 fast chargers all around the country. I think we are happy to say that on the charging as perspective, we're quite developed and we are very happy EV drivers in that way. And I think one of the reasons as well is that from moment on when we started electric driving in the Netherlands, roaming was possible. So with one EV card, you could charge everywhere. And so that was a big scale up for e-mobility. So all the operators were working together very well. And that was since 2009 or something. So that was a good start of the development. We've got quite a few benefits as well. So there's money if you buy an electric car or a used car. What you can imagine is that the pot is always empty. It will start again in January next year, but I'm sure that it will be empty after 2 or 3 weeks. So there's never enough. And there's lots of national support, but also regional support. But that regional support is different in every city or community you live in. And we have tax credit. We used to have a lot of tax credit, but it's decreasing because our national government thinks, EV driving is getting much more mainstream. We disagree. We think it's still in need for support, but our national government, it's always a fight that we have with the national government. A fight in the good sense, of course. What do we do as fair? We do, like the Norwegians, we do surveys. And we do 2 surveys. We do charging surveys and who is the electric driver surveys, because that gives different perspective, and it gives us also more reason to be in the news and to make some news about what we're doing. Just a short note, this is how our Dutch charging mix is, and it's slightly different from the Norwegians one, I think, because we use, most of the people don't have their own possibility to charge at home. So our public charging infrastructure is quite developed. And we know that about 10% of all kilometers are made through the fast charging. So fast chargers are always also a definite part. And if you look at how satisfied people are, most of the time our Dutch drivers are satisfied with our charging, except for the public chargers. Those are, always the most difficult to be satisfied about. And if you look at the bottlenecks, this is what we are fighting on the next years. It's not enough chargers, even though we've got a lot. That's not enough. You have no indication of what you're paying for the charging. Sometimes chargers are broken, sometimes chargers are taken by ICE cars, and charging speed is also getting more important with the new generation of EV drivers. And we also do, as I told you, national surveys on who is the EV drivers, and we try to this is the 3rd year we're doing that. we've developed sort of personas to see how people develop, what sort of drivers there are, and what sort of measures you should take to, to make them enthusiastic about EV driving. What we also find important is debunking fake news. So we've got all sorts of facts and fables. We organize meetings. We also have got booklets that people, that are on a holiday or on a birthday, and people ask them, what is this about EV driving? Is it, is that? So that we help our EV drivers to debunk that fake news. One of the projects we just started this summer is try the EV of your neighbor. We call it sturen bij je buren in good Dutch. So what it is possible is that if you are an EV driver, you can just take your neighbor and, show them what it is to drive electric and how it, and do a charging event. And so we've got about 150 ambassadors all around the country that lend out their car. And that gives a sort of good impression of what EV driving is. We also make news because it's important to be there, to be present, to be in every, what we also as FAIR do is we make all sorts of events, but we also take care that we are in every network, national and regional network, political network, to be present and to, give the voice of the EV driver. One of the good things we also have is an EV help desk. People can ask questions, and this is one of the USPs to be a member. So if you want to have a question, you can ask it, and if you really want to go into the Q&A library, you have to be a member of the FAIR. So that is really one of the good things to become a member of the FAIR. And what we also look at innovation. So we've just had our first battery on wheels conference about, all the possibilities of V2X, about bidirectional charging. And we are very happy that this is our king of the Netherlands, and he introduced this project about bidirectional charging. And we think it's important to be on top of all the innovation that's happening, because EV drivers in this energy crisis situation, they're very keen on smart charging, how to save money by charging, how to do it smart, and how to do it renewable. So this is what we are working on. So what we think is important, that we are part of the most important national policy decision-making network, so that you're always there. We have a good network in the media and the politics, so we work on lobby on a daily basis. And the professional organization, like 1 director and 2 staff, helps us, and we got it through the funding of different means. And our ambassadors network, so the ambassadors network in the whole country. We don't have chapters in the Netherlands, but our country is so small, but we have got ambassadors all around the country that help us with this. So that was what I would like to say to you.
So looking at Netherlands, in Slovenia, our challenge is to grow from a volunteer association to an employer. How did you succeed?
That was one of the most important things, because only a volunteer network is difficult, and we know that. So what we did, I told you about the surveys. We do different things, and we work together with the ministry, our Ministry of Infrastructure, and they gave us money to do that. So instead of spending that money on people that would do the service, we did it ourselves together with a big university. So we sort of kept the money. And so we made a sort of, we kept the money that we earned with doing all sorts of things. And we also got some funding from the European Climate Foundation. So that all together gave us this funding to employ 1 director. And what we said to the director is, you have to do 2 things. One thing is to build up the community, the network, because we can't do it all ourselves. And the other thing is that, we have to have a good basis, a good website, a good infrastructure, a good network, as I was telling you, and also to have a good box of what is the membership, why is it important to be a member of the FAIR, and how can we let that grow. So we also started a campaign to become a member, and that is 18 months now, and we're still in the beginning, but it helped us to have some funding to be able to build a professional organization.
Thank you. You already gave us answers to 2 topics. It's the strategy and also the finances. But now I would like you to refine or give you more structured answers where to look for finances, public sector, membership, and private sector. So we have all the answers in one place.
Yeah, what we've done, we find is important that we got the funding, from three things. It's one of them is that we did tasks, projects together with the ministry, so we got some funding there. We've got a paid membership, so we've got lots of free members, but we have also got a premium membership we get some money from, and we got our money from the European Climate Foundation. So those are the three sources.
Thank you. Thank you. And as an employer, what profiles should the association attract first? Were you looking through a profile, what a certain person should have as experiences? Were you more project experience oriented, or is there something else that's really of a great value for an association?
Yeah, well, I talked with some other association. I talked to Petter and his organization, to Plug in America, and we found out that we said, well, we need some, first one director who, gets all the basics right. And she had an experience in EV driving, and she was handling our EV help desk. So she was already known to our organization, and she said, okay, well, I'm going to put on the basics. And I think one of the other things that we attract was a community manager, someone who is really into people and, can find and spot people, can keep them enthusiastic. And we organized all sorts of training for the ambassadors. So it's sort of someone who is, strict in putting all the basics in order, and someone who puts our organization in order. So that's what we were looking for.
Thank you very much for your valuable experience, and really it sounds as a great support for the next steps in Slovenia. Thank you.
But we're not yet there, so it's also a struggle. We've got still our challenges as well now, and the growth of the paid members is really a big challenge for us and very difficult for us, and so there is much to learn still.